What's going on, everyone? So, got a lot of comments lately talking about the babysitter idea that I had in a video about a month or maybe more now, probably a couple months by now. But I wanted to kind of dive into the babysitter idea because I do really like the idea as well, of the babysitter potentially being the killer, and kind of going that route for several reasons, right? Because, I mean, look, Sidney Prescott, she's going to be the main focus, and it's going to be family, right? Ghostface targeting her family, Mark Kincaid, her children, all of that stuff, along with Sidney Prescott. So she's going to have to navigate that. And it's just like how Sidney would be so guarded. Sidney has dealt with so much betrayal her entire life. She's going to be very careful who she has in her life, who she has around her kids. And based on reports, there is supposed to be a babysitter in this film, right? Now, there also have been reports that Mark Kincaid is a stay-at-home dad. So we'll see which route they go. Like, maybe, I mean, you could easily explain it. Like, maybe Mark Kincaid is a stay-at-home dad and, you know, he wants to get back into work. Maybe he's getting antsy. He's getting sick of just sitting around all day, and he wants to get back in the workforce, so they're talking about getting a babysitter, right? Because in those original rumors, again, take it all with a grain of salt, but in those original rumors, Sidney is interviewing babysitters, right? Well, why would you interview a babysitter now, right? Like, it's a little odd unless, oh, hey, Mark Kincaid wants to get back into the workforce, right? So I do think you could have an easy kind of setup, an easy explanation as to why this is happening, why this is unfolding, and kind of use that to kind of set and lay the foundation for the film going forward. Also, you can it not only does it get you away from the norm, right? But you have a built-in sort of fail-safe as to why the babysitter would do it. Like, you don't have to make it a relative or anything like that, right? Like, Richie established, and they even further went into this in Scream 6, further established that, like, cult of Ghostface, right? Like, him and Amber, they discovered each other on the Dreadit thread, and, you know, and then you saw Jason and Greg, they were kind of like the little minions that wanted to finish Richie's quest, right? Like, so to me, you have Richie and kind of his story and like what in the movement he started to kind of justify and explain the motive and why the babysitter did that and how the babysitter was able to kind of manipulate and wiggle, her way in, and then there you go, right? Like, so I think you even have, not only do you have an easy way to kind of set everything up with Mark Kincaid going from stay-at-home dad to, hey, I want to get back into work. But then you could use Richie as like the explanation for why this woman or man or whomever the babysitter is. But my guess, it'll probably be a woman, right? So you if you have that setup and you have that establishment, well, then now you have the easy tie-in and kind of path to Richie being like another kind of disciple in this Ghostface cult, and there's this Ghostface grand scheme, right? And because you got to imagine that Sidney's going to do everything she can to kind of vet this person, right? Like, she's going to do background checks and do this and do that. So you have to have somebody that appears and seems to be as, as squeaky clean as possible. Somebody that has no killer tendencies, and somebody that has no doesn't even have necessarily even a parking ticket, right? Somebody that Sidney looks at and goes, yeah, like that person not going to be a killer, right? You have to have somebody that can kind of portray themselves in a way. So it can't be some I'd also imagine it's somebody that is maybe even younger, right? And that could also be the tie-in to the new group of characters, right? Maybe they're all connected and all in a relationship with the babysitter, not like in a relationship in the sense of like romantically, but just they all have that connection tie into the babysitter. Maybe the babysitter is one of the targets, right? But she's in on it, and then boom, there you go, right? So now you have this easy kind of storyline, this easy story plot. babysitter and an accomplice is taking out, all of her friends, trying to get after Sidney and all that stuff. And it's just like this connective, intertwining story that I think you could really kind of have be the setup and establishment. I think there's a lot of ways that you can go with this babysitter route, and I definitely want to dive into a couple kind of ideas and theories that I have, because I do have like several that kind of come to mind on like just potentials for killer, non-killer, in between, right? Like, maybe even like a red herring, right? So definitely look forward to a couple videos in that regard. But sticking with her, the babysitter potentially being a killer, I also like it because, like I mentioned briefly earlier, like you get away from the norm of Ghostface, right? Especially the Sidney versions of Ghostface, where it's the boyfriend, or it's the best friend, or it's the mother who's out for revenge, or it's the cousin, or it's just like, or the niece, right? Like, it's just I'd like to kind of have just this like random tie-in, rather than it has to, oh, it's Sidney's brother's cousin's nephew's niece. Like, oh, it's the, like, I like the idea of it being the babysitter in the kitchen with the candlestick, right? Like, for those that get the reference, right? Like, I like that idea. I like that it would be not just the same old trope all over again, right? Like Scream 5, it was the boyfriend again. Scream 6, it was, the revenge, the good old-fashioned revenge factor. It was Mrs. Loomis all over again. It's just like, how many times can we repeat the same story and plot, right? Like, where I just think the babysitter, Sidney, kind of in a position where she has no choice. She has to get a babysitter. Maybe she's reluctant to do it. Maybe she's, now that babysitter comes in, okay, all is great, and then boom, big shock at the end. Oh, babysitter taking out Sidney, right? And it's just like this whole thing. Or maybe, the babysitter comes in and boom, like, just like, oh, no, she can't be it. And then, oh, big reveal, shocker. Oh, she really is. And it's just so different from what we've gotten with the other Ghostface in the past. It's somebody that's still connected to Sidney, somebody that still has ties to Sidney. It's somebody that could still get close enough to Sidney to be able to put her and her family at jeopardy, but it's not somebody that's related to Sidney, or, has a super close connection to Sidney. And it's like, oh, it's her best friend this time, or it's, it's like, oh, it's her, this person's been, acquaintance with her for the last 10 years. Like, no, it's somebody new coming in. And I get that might be a little obvious. Like, oh, it's okay. Like, if it's the babysitter, brand new babysitter, killer pops up, that's super obvious. But I don't think that matters, right? Like, if you've watched Scream, the killers are pretty much always obvious, right? Like, Detective Bailey was obvious, right? Like, even Richie was obvious at points. Amber was obvious at points, right? Like, I mean, you go back and it's like, Mickey, like, you look at Mickey, it's like, there's no way Mickey isn't the killer. Like, Mickey was the biggest red flag. I mean, Mickey was so obvious, it was like, it's not Mickey, right? Like, Mickey was too obvious that it kind of like, I think that's kind of what it was. It was like, I'm going to tell you to pick right, so that way you'll think it's left when really it's right, right? Like, it was like that double, like, whammy. It was like, right? Like, you just kind of go down the list, and it's just like, you can kind of figure, I just think it's more of the story, the plot, the setup, right? How do they use her as misdirections and, kind of keep you on this roller coaster ride, right? And then also, she probably has an accomplice. So, you could have the accomplice be the big twist. So I do think that there are paths to having success in making this work. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Yes, do you think, like, yes, I love the idea of, it being the babysitter. You do have easy tie-ins. You do have easy connections, as I mentioned. Do you think, nah? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.